Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are heading out to the tarmac, but I don't want to talk about the legroom or the terrible coffee or the frequent flyer miles.
Probably for the best.
Yeah, exactly. I want to look at something invisible,
Yeah.
something that is arguably flying the plane just as much as the captain in the cockpit. We are calling it the ghost pilot.
It is a slightly eerie image, isn't it? The ghost pilot. But honestly, it captures the reality of aviation in 2026 better than any technical manual could.
It does, but let's be real for a second. When I first read through the stack of reports, and we have a massive stack today, from IATA's 2025 deep dives to the annual reports from SIA Engineering Company and studies on the Singaporean workforce, I kept getting this visual of a hidden crew member. You know, you have the captain, the first officer, and then this third entity made entirely of code sitting in the jump seat. But is this just marketing fluff? Is ghost pilot just a fancy way of saying autopilot?
Oh, it is definitely not autopilot.
Yeah.
Not even close. Autopilot is just a system that follows a heading, a preset course. What we are talking about here is the digital twin.
The digital twin. We hear that buzzword everywhere now.
We do, but in aviation, it's literal. The concept is that every single modern aircraft, whether it is an A320neo or a 737 MAX, has a virtual clone living in the cloud.
A clone. So if I am flying on a specific plane, tail number X-ray Alpha 1, there is a digital version of X-ray Alpha 1 existing on a server somewhere.
That is the core of it.
Right.
But it is not just a static 3D model like you would see in a video game. It is a living, breathing well, processing entity.
Okay.
While the human pilot feels the stick and rudder, the pressure on the controls, the ghost pilot feels the data. It feels every vibration in a turbine, every micro change in hydraulic pressure, every slight fluctuation in temperature, and it processes all of that in real time.
Okay, I want to dig into feels the data because that sounds poetic, but what does it actually mean physically? We were talking about sensors, right?
Yeah.
Thousands of them.
Thousands of them, exactly. A modern engine is basically a sensor array with some propulsion attached to it. It's recording the harmonic vibration of a specific blade in the turbine. It's recording valve pressure to the fourth decimal point.
So if a blade wobbles by a millimeter, the ghost knows.
If it wobbles by a micron, the ghost knows. And here's where it gets really interesting. This digital twin, this clone, it ages in real time alongside the physical metal.
It ages? What do you mean?
If the physical plane hits a patch of rough turbulence over the Pacific and the wings flex, the digital twin registers that stress load instantly. It calculates how much life was just taken out of the wing spar. It gets a little bit older, a little more tired, just like the real thing.
Which is fascinating, but also, if I'm being honest, it makes me feel just a tiny bit uneasy.
Hey, I get that.
I mean, I like the idea of a veteran pilot with gray hair and 30 years of experience using their intuition. You know, the Sullenberger type. Now you are telling me there is an algorithm looking over their shoulder.
Or perhaps acting as their ultimate safety net. That is the tension we need to unpack today. Think of it less as a ghost and more as a guardian angel, but one made of math.
A guardian angel made of algorithms. I like that, but I'm still skeptical about how much we should trust it. So here's our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We need to figure out if aviation has fundamentally shifted.
Right.
The sources are claiming we have gone from mechanical repair, fixing things with a wrench when they break, to data-driven prophecy.
Prophecy is a strong word, but in this context, it fits. We are looking at whether this ghost in the machine actually makes flying safer or if we are just drowning in noise and data.
And critically, are we losing that human touch? The instinct of the mechanic who knows a part is bad just by the smell of it.
That's the core question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we're going to ground this in a specific geography, too, because as we went through the materials, it became obvious that the brain of this new nervous system isn't in Seattle or Toulouse anymore.
No, it's in Southeast Asia. It is in Singapore and Kuala Lumpur.
That is where the battle for the future of maintenance is happening. It is the Silicon Valley of aviation maintenance right now.
Okay, let's roll up our sleeves. I want to start with the anatomy of this thing. Because digital twin is a buzzword we hear in tech all the time. Companies use it for everything from toasters to skyscrapers. But for a plane, how does this actually work day to day?
You have to understand the volume of information we're dealing with. It's almost incomprehensible. A modern aircraft is essentially a flying data center. A single flight of a next-generation engine generates terabytes of data.
Terabytes for one flight. I can't even picture that. That's like my entire movie collection.
Exactly. And it's not just recording engine on or engine off. It is streaming a constant narrative of its own health, a story written in numbers.
So in the old days, the pilot would write in a logbook, engine 2 sounded a bit funny.
Right. And then a mechanic would go out, listen to it, maybe kick the tires and say, sounds fine to me. That is reactive. You wait for a problem.
Or you fix it because the manual says, replace this part every 5,000 hours. That is scheduled maintenance.
Right, scheduled, which is incredibly inefficient, surely, because maybe that part was still perfectly fine. You're throwing away a good part because a calendar told you to?
That is the massive inefficiency the industry has lived with for decades. Or, conversely, maybe that part was about to break at 4,000 hours and the schedule missed it. That is the safety risk.
Precisely. The shift we are seeing now in 2026 is to predictive maintenance. The ghost pilot, the digital twin, predicts a failure 3 weeks before it happens.
Okay, explain that mechanism. How does a computer predict a failure 3 weeks out? Is it magic? It sounds like magic.
It is pattern recognition on a scale humans can't comprehend. Let's look at the Boeing and Korean Air case study from September 2025. This was a significant move. They partnered on something called the Insight Accelerator.
I remember seeing this in the notes. Korean Air seems to be really leaning into this. They aren't just buying the planes, they are buying the data ecosystem.
They are early adopters. They set up a dedicated predictive maintenance team way back in 2023. The Insight Accelerator uses machine learning to look for patterns, tiny anomalies. It is like the digital twin feels a fever.
A fever.
Think about the human body. Before you get full-blown flu, you might feel slightly achy or your temperature goes up by half a degree. You function fine, but the data said something is wrong.
Sure, you know something's coming.
The Insight Accelerator does that for the plane. Maybe there is a micro vibration in a turbine that shouldn't be there. A human pilot wouldn't feel it. A mechanic standing next to the engine wouldn't hear it. But the sensors pick it up.
And the AI sees that little wobble.
It sees the wobble, and it compares that micro vibration to millions of hours of historical data from thousands of other engines, and it says, in 99% of cases, this specific vibration means the number 3 bearing will fail in approximately 20 days.
So it orders the replacement part before the plane even lands.
It does more than that. It orders the part, ensures it's shipped to the right airport, schedules the mechanic in the hangar space for the next overnight stop 3 weeks from now. The mechanic walks out to the plane with the part in hand before the pilot even knows something is wrong.
So the plane never technically breaks. It gets healed before the symptoms show up.
That is the goal, to kill the AOG.
AOG. I saw that acronym everywhere in the reports.
Aircraft on ground. That is the dirty acronym of the airline industry. It is the enemy. An AOG event means the plane is stuck at the gate, passengers are angry, the crew is timing out, and the airline is lighting money on fire.
We have all been on that flight. Ladies and gentlemen, we are waiting on a maintenance check, and you just know you aren't making your connection.
Right. The digital twin ensures that announcement never happens, or at least happens much less frequently.
That sounds utopian. But I have to push back here. We have all this data, terabytes of it. Isn't there a risk of just drowning? I mean, real-world data is messy. It's not clean rows in an Excel sheet.
Oh, it's incredibly messy.
It's legacy systems, it's handwritten logs from 20 years ago that someone scanned as a PDF.
You have hit on the dirty secret of the industry, the gold mine versus the mess. Airlines have a gold mine of data, but it is often buried in what we call unstructured formats. PDF reports, notes in a margin, legacy databases from the 90s that don't talk to the cloud.
So you have this super smart AI, but it's trying to read a doctor's handwriting.
Basically, and that's a huge problem. This is where that startup AIXI comes in. They won the most disruptive startup award, and for good reason. They tackled the unsexy part of the digital twin, cleaning the plumbing.
I love when the unsexy stuff turns out to be the most important. What did they actually do?
They utilize an industry-specific large language model, an ILM, so not a generic one like ChatGPT, but one trained specifically on millions of aviation engineering documents, maintenance logs, and repair manuals. It learns the language. It learns what a hydraulic actuator is and how it relates to a gasket seal.
So it can read those messy old PDFs and actually understand them.
It scrubs the records. It can pull a part number from a scanned, coffee-stained work order from 1998 and put it into a modern, structured database.
And there was that great anecdote about Southwest Airlines in the source material.
This was a pivotal moment. Southwest, being a very diligent, safety-conscious airline, tried to have humans verify the AI's data cleaning. They thought, we can't trust the bot completely with safety data. Reasonable, right?
Fairly reasonable. I do the same thing.
But what happened? The AI beat the humans. The humans were missing connections that the AI caught. The AI found discrepancies in part numbers that human eyes just glazed over after hours of staring at spreadsheets.
That is a crossing the Rubicon moment, isn't it? When the tool becomes better at the mundane task of verification than the expert.
It is the aha moment, because you cannot have a smart ghost pilot if it is reading a messy map.
Yeah.
If your historical data is garbage, your predictions will be garbage. AIXI is basically teaching the ghost pilot how to read the history books correctly so it can predict the future.
Okay, so we have established the anatomy. It's data-fed, it's predictive, and it relies on cleaning up a messy history. But this ghost has a home address. As we mentioned, it's hanging out in Southeast Asia.
The geography of this is fascinating. If you want to see the future of aviation maintenance, you don't go to Chicago or Frankfurt. You go to Singapore or Kuala Lumpur.
Why there? Is it just because of the weather? Or is there something structural happening?
It is the perfect storm of demographics and fleet age. You have a massive growing middle class in Southeast Asia and South Asia. We're talking Indonesia, Vietnam, India. That means more people flying for the first time, which means airlines are expanding their networks aggressively.
And they aren't buying used planes, right? They are buying new metal.
Correct. This region has the highest density of new generation aircraft orders in the world. We were talking about the A320neos, the 737AXs. These planes are born with thousands of sensors. They are digital natives.
So if you were flying an old 747 from the 90s, the Ghost Pilot is a bit blurry, it's low resolution, but on a new A320neo flying from Jakarta to Singapore.
The Ghost Pilot is in 4K resolution. That engine is transmitting real-time health data to monitoring centers in Changi while it is still in the air.
Let's talk about Singapore first. They seem to be positioning themselves as the brain of this operation, the smart MRO hub.
The Singapore strategy, led by JTC Corporation and the Association of Aerospace Industries, is all about high-tech, high-value. They know they can't compete on cheap labor, so they compete on speed and intelligence.
We saw the stats for SIA engineering company SIAEC. They posted a net profit of 139.6 million Singapore dollars for the 2024-25 fiscal year. That suggests the strategy is working.
It proves that betting on high-tech pays off. But look at how they're doing it. It's not just about software. Take the drone inspections.
This is one of the coolest visuals. Walk us through a drone inspection. What does that actually look like in the hangar?
Imagine a massive hangar in Changi Airport.
Yeah.
You have an A350 parked there. Instead of a human climbing up a scaffold with a flashlight, risking a fall, and maybe missing a hairline crack because they are tired or the light is bad.
Which happens. Humans get tired.
Exactly. Instead of that, you launch a drone.
Is someone piloting it with a joystick?
No, it is autonomous. It flies a pre-programmed path around the fuselage, taking thousands of high-resolution photos. It uses AI to stitch those photos together into a 3D model and spot defects, lightning strikes, dents, scratches that happened on the last flight. It can spot a defect smaller than a human eye can see.
And it does it in a fraction of the time, I'm guessing?
A fraction. What took hours now takes minutes. And then you have the digital suites they're using, like eSlot.
eSlot sounds like a gambling app, but it's actually for hangars, right?
It is digital hangar bay slot planning. It sounds boring, but think of a hangar like a hotel. You've limited rooms, limited slots for planes. If a plane is sitting there waiting for parts, it is taking up a room that another paying customer could use.
To its lost revenue.
It's massive lost revenue. eSlot uses algorithms to pack that schedule tight, like a game of Tetris. It optimizes the occupancy, so the hangar is always making money.
So Singapore is the high-tech premium brain, but then you have Kuala Lumpur right next door, and reading the reports, the vibe there feels different. It feels like the challenger.
Malaysia is absolutely the challenger, and their weapon is cost efficiency combined with scale. They are aiming for 50% of the regional market by 2030. That is incredibly ambitious.
And SIEC sees this, right? They aren't just staying in Singapore.
No, they are hedging their bets. They have to. SIEC is opening new hangars in Subang, Malaysia, in the second half of 2025. They know that for some work, you need the high-tech brain of Singapore, but for heavy, labor-intensive checks, the cost structure in Malaysia is very attractive.
We also saw mention of Asia Digital Engineering, ADE. They have that massive 14-line hangar in Kuala Lumpur.
Massive. It is a factory for maintenance, a true industrial-scale operation. But what is really cool about what's happening in both KL and Bangkok is how they are using predictive logistics.
This was the weather thing, right? This blew my mind.
Yes. They are using AI to predict spare parts needs based on regional weather patterns.
Wait, unpack that. How does the weather change what parts I need? I mean, I get de-icing fluid in winter, but this is the tropics. It's always hot.
It is about humidity and heat. Southeast Asia is hot and wet. That accelerates corrosion and wear on certain components, like rubber seals or specific avionics cooling fans,
Yeah.
much faster than if that plane were flying in, say, Scandinavia or the dry desert air of the Middle East.
So a plane flying the Jakarta to Kuala Lumpur route ages differently than the exact same model of plane flying the London to New York route.
Exactly. And the AI knows this. It knows that a plane flying that specific tropical route will likely need a new seal in 3 months, while the same plane flying in London would last 6 months. So it pre-orders the part to be waiting in KL. It adapts the supply chain to the climate.
That is wild. It's almost like the ecosystem itself is part of the maintenance plan.
It is.
Yeah.
And it is necessary because of the AOG war.
Right, let's talk numbers. What does it actually cost when a plane is stuck on the ground?
The numbers are staggering. An airplane on the ground costs between $10,000 and $150,000 per day.
$150,000 a day. That is a nice house in some places. Just gone every single day for one plane.
So if your digital twin can save you 2 days of downtime by predicting a failure, that is $300,000 saved on one event. The estimate from the IATA report is that this condition-based maintenance is saving the regional industry over $500 million annually.
So the Ghost Pilot isn't just a safety feature, it is a CFO's best friend.
It is the difference between profit and loss for many airlines in a very tight margin business. But there is always a but. Even the smartest Ghost Pilot needs spare parts. You can predict the failure, but if you don't have the replacement widget, the plane still sits.
And right now in 2025 and 2026, getting those parts is a nightmare. This brings us to Section 3, the supply chain crisis. I was reading the IATA and Oliver Wyman report from October 2025, and it is bleak. They predicted supply chain challenges would cost airlines $11 billion in 2025.
It is a complete breakdown. New parts from the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers like Boeing, Airbus, GE have delivery times of 12 months or more, a year.
Yeah.
Sometimes longer. Imagine taking your car to the shop and they say, sure, we can fix the brakes, the part will be here next year.
You would buy a new car. But you can't just go to the dealership and buy a new A380.
No, you can't. The backlog for new planes is years long. So the industry has turned to a fascinating and slightly morbid solution: the boneyard economy.
This is one of my favorite parts of the research, even though it's kind of melancholy. The value of death.
It sounds morbid, but it is just economics. Retirement isn't the end for a plane. It is a liquidity event. When a plane is worth more as a pile of parts than it is as a flying machine, it goes to the boneyard.
I have seen photos of these places, like Alice Springs in Australia. It looks apocalyptic. Just rows and rows of massive jets sitting in the red desert dust. Why not just park them in a hangar in Sydney? All right.
It comes down to corrosion. Humidity is the enemy of aluminum and avionics. The humidity in Alice Springs is near zero. The red dust is dry. You can park a 747 there, wrap the engines in plastic, and 10 years later, it is in the exact same condition as the day you left it. It's like natural cryogenics.
Okay, but you said harvest. That sounds grim. Are we talking about a crew with hacksaws ripping things apart?
No, it is surgical. It is actually more precise than the assembly line. A team goes in highly specialized mechanics. They aren't just ripping parts off. They have a shopping list. We need the landing gear from the 777-300ER with this specific serial number. They extract it, crate it, and ship it.
What are the big ticket items? What's most valuable?
The engines. Engines represent about 80% of the remaining value of the aircraft. They're the crown jewels, but they strip everything. Landing gear, avionics computers, the little screens in the back of the seats, even the coffee makers.
And this feeds the used serviceable material market, the USM market.
USM is the lifeblood of the industry right now, because those parts are 30% to 50% cheaper than new ones, and more importantly, they're available now. You don't have to wait 12 months for the factory.
But here is the crazy part that stood out to me from the analysis in the hangar ledger. We are seeing younger and younger planes going to the boneyard.
We are. This is the cannibalization trend. We are seeing A380s and even early Boeing 787s planes that aren't that old, relatively speaking, being sent to the desert.
Why kill a teenager, metaphorically speaking? Why not keep it flying?
Because their sisters are still flying and they're starving for parts. It makes more financial sense to ground one 787 and harvest its parts to keep 5 others flying than to have all 6 sitting on the ground waiting for the factory.
So the sum of the parts is literally greater than the whole.
Exactly. The whole plane is a liability. It costs money to park and assure. The parts are liquid gold.
That is. So we are basically flying Frankenstein planes. I mean, I sit in seat 4A, and the computer controlling my air conditioning might be harvested from a dead plane in Australia.
Frankenstein might be a bit harsh. Think of it as efficient recycling. These are certified parts. They are inspected, tested, and recertified to the same standard as a new part. But yes, your plane is likely a mix of new and reincarnated components.
Reincarnated components. I will try to remember that next time I experience turbulence. Don't worry, the engine has good karma. But how do they find these parts? Is there like an eBay for jet engines?
Actually, yes, that is the other big shift, the Amazon alphification of aviation parts.
I love that term. Because the old way was painful, right? Slow and clunky.
It was archaic.
Yeah.
It used to be that if you needed a part, you sent an email or a fax to a dozen suppliers and waited for a quote. It could take days.
And the plane is just sitting there, burning cash.
Right. Now, Airbus has integrated 5 million parts onto a single digital marketplace.
So the maintenance manager in Singapore just logs in, sees a fuel pump available in a warehouse in Dubai, and clicks Add to Cart.
Essentially, they expect real-time inventory and one-click buying. The old way of doing business is dead. If you can't sell your part digitally, you don't exist. It brings the speed of consumer retail to heavy industry.
Okay, so we have the ghost pilot predicting the future. We have a supply chain that relies on harvesting dead planes in the Australian desert. But where are the people? We talked about the human touch in the intro. Section 4 is all about humans versus silicon.
This is the emotional core of the transformation. We are witnessing a fundamental clash between intuition and logic.
The grease monkey versus the data nerd.
It is a stereotype, but it exists. The grease monkey is the mechanic who has been working on 737s for 30 years. He knows the smell of a hydraulic leak. It has a specific acrid scent. He knows the sound a valve makes when it is sticky. He doesn't need a computer to tell him something is wrong. He feels it in his hands.
I have to say, I trust that guy. There is something about muscle memory and lived experience that feels safer than a cold algorithm.
I understand that instinct. I think we all do. But the data nerd, who is monitoring a bank of screens in an air-conditioned office in Changi, sees things the grease monkey physically can't. They see a voltage spike on a graph that lasts for a millisecond. No human senses can detect that.
So the core question is, can an algorithm replace that 30 years of experience, especially when things go wrong at 30,000 feet?
The industry answer seems to be, we need both. But the human role is changing rapidly. The Workforce Singapore, or WSG 2025 report was very clear on this. They predict that 30% of the aviation workforce will see their jobs redesigned in the next 5 years.
30% is a huge number. That is 1 in 3 people having their daily life completely altered.
And it's not just mechanics in the hangar. Look at the tarmac. We are moving toward automation in a big way. Autonomous vehicles, AVs.
Driverless baggage carts. I've seen videos of these. They look like little ghost tractors roaming around the airport.
Exactly. Baggage tractors that drive themselves.
Well,
robots that load bags into the hold of the aircraft.
Which honestly sounds great if it's pouring rain or there is a lightning storm. No one wants to be out there in a monsoon.
That is the safety argument. Humans shouldn't be out on a wet tarmac in a lightning storm lifting heavy bags. Let the robot do it. But what happens to the guy who used to drive the tractor?
He becomes a supervisor. He watches the robots.
He goes from doer to supervisor. Instead of driving one tractor, he sits in a control room and monitors a fleet of 10 autonomous tractors. If one gets stuck or has an error, he takes over remotely.
So he needs to be computer literate now. He needs to understand the software interface. He can't just be good at driving.
He needs analytical skills. He is not steering with a wheel. He is steering with a mouse. And he needs green skills, too.
Right, the electric push toward 2040.
Everything on the ground is going electric. The baggage carts, the food service trucks, everything. So the mechanic who used to fix diesel engines on the ground equipment now needs to understand high-voltage battery management. It's a completely different skill set. You can't just wrench on an EV. You will electrocute yourself.
This reminds me of that Aerogenie tool mentioned in the E-Plane AI source. It's described as an intelligent co-pilot for the mechanic.
Aerogenie is a great example of how the human and the AI interact. It acts as a bridge. A mechanic can ask it in plain English, show me the maintenance history for the landing gear on this specific tail number, or what does the manual say about error code 45-1?
So it is like ChatGPT for aircraft maintenance. Instead of flipping through a 5,000-page manual, you just ask the Oracle.
Yes, ask anything, analyze everything. It reduces the manual workload of digging through PDFs, but it demands that the human knows what to ask. The skill shifts from memorizing the manual to knowing how to interrogate the database.
It feels like the human is becoming a manager of AI systems rather than a direct operator of a machine.
That is the trend across the board. The human is the conductor. The AI is the orchestra.
But this brings us to the ultimate question. Safety, Section 5. We are trusting the ghost pilot. We are trusting the supply chain of used parts from the boneyard. Is it actually safe?
The data says yes, it's safer. But there are new risks we never had to think about before. One of them is the fake part problem, SUP suspected unauthorized parts.
This sounds terrifying. Counterfeit airplane parts.
It is the dark side of the supply chain crisis. When airlines are desperate for parts and willing to pay top dollar, counterfeiters step in. They make a part that looks exactly like a GE turbine blade, but it is made of inferior metal. If that goes into an engine, it could shatter at 35,000 feet.
So how do you stop that? If it looks real, how do you know?
The tech fix is blockchain.
Blockchain. Really? I thought that was just for crypto bros buying pictures of monkeys.
Yeah, it has a much more practical use here. In aviation, it is incredibly useful. It creates an immutable record, a digital passport for every screw and bolt.
Walk me through that. How does it work for a bolt?
Imagine a bolt is made in a factory in Ohio. As soon as it's created, it gets a digital token on the blockchain. It is scanned when it leaves the factory, scanned when it hits the warehouse in Singapore, scanned again when the mechanic installs it. Each step is a new, unchangeable block in the chain.
So if that bolt shows up in Dubai and the scan doesn't match the blockchain history.
The system rejects it instantly. It tracks the provenance from cradle to grave.
So it is a DNA test for metal.
Exactly. If the paperwork doesn't match the digital ledger, you don't fly. It enforces the industry's zero-tolerance policy for errors.
So the digital twin isn't just checking the health of the engine, it is checking the authenticity of the engine's components.
Precisely. And then you have vision tech, ensuring nothing is left behind after the repair is done.
The smart tool chests. I saw this in the SIAC report and laughed. It sounds like a nagging parent.
It addresses a very serious problem. Foreign object debris FOD. A mechanic leaves a wrench inside an engine cowling. The engine starts. Catastrophe.
Right.
Smart tool chests use cameras. The drawer knows it's supposed to have 10 wrenches in it. If you take a wrench out, it knows.
Yeah.
If you try to close the drawer at the end of the shift without putting the wrench back, it screams at you. Alarms go off. It won't let you sign off on the job until every tool is accounted for.
It is babysitting the mechanic.
It is ensuring perfection. And then there is Gen AI rectification. This is at the next level. SIAC is developing systems where the AI doesn't just tell you there is a defect. It analyzes millions of historical repair logs and tells you here is the best way to fix this defect.
So it is coaching the mechanic. Hey, last time this happened on an A350, tightening the valve didn't work for long. You need to replace the entire seal. Here's the part number.
Right. It is capturing the collective wisdom of the entire industry, millions of repairs, and whispering it into the ear of the mechanic on the hangar floor.
And the goal of all of this, the ghost pilot, the AI logistics, the smart tools, is what the sources call the zero downtime future.
That is the holy grail.
Right.
A world where planes never stop moving. The digital twin solves every problem in the virtual realm before the physical plane even lands.
Like that China Eastern Airlines example from the source material.
Yes. Using AI to predict not just maintenance, but flight demand and potential weather delays. Optimizing the schedule so perfectly that the plane is always in the air, making money, and only hits the ground for the minimum time required for passengers to swap.
It sounds incredibly efficient. It sounds cheaper. And statistically, you are saying it is safer.
The data says it is safer. You eliminate human error. You catch failures before they happen. You verify parts with blockchain. On paper, it's a perfect system.
But I know you have a but coming. I can hear it in your voice.
I do.
Let's move to the outro. Because as amazing as all this technology is, I keep thinking about the black swan.
The black swan. The event you cannot predict because it's outside all of your historical data.
We have built a system, this ghost pilot, that relies entirely on data and connectivity. It needs the cloud, it needs the sensors to work, it needs the connection to Singapore or KL.
We have moved from fixing broken things to predicting the future. That is a massive fundamental leap. But here is the provocative thought I want to leave our listeners with.
Before it scare me.
If the digital twin is perfect, we stop training humans to deal with the imperfect. If the ghost pilot catches every vibration, the human pilot or mechanic never has to troubleshoot a mystery. They lose that muscle memory. They lose that grease monkey intuition because they never, ever have to use it.
So what happens when the ghost crashes?
Exactly. What happens when the servers go down in a solar flare? What happens in a massive cyber attack where the data is corrupted and the AI starts lying to you? If the screen goes blank and the ghost pilot vanishes, will there be anyone left who knows how to fly the plane or fix the engine using just their hands and their intuition?
That is a chilling thought. We might be engineering the pilot out of the pilot. We are creating a generation of operators who can only fly when the computer is holding their hand.
Maybe the safest flight isn't one where the computer does everything. Maybe the safest flight is one where the ghost pilot and the human pilot are still talking to each other, where the human still has the final say, and importantly, the ability and the training to make that call.
The ghost is a crew member, not the captain.
It should remain that way.
That is a fantastic place to leave it. We have gone from the digital hubs of Singapore to the boneyards of Australia and into the code that keeps us airborne. Thank you for unpacking this with me. It's been a massive download.
My pleasure. It is a brave new world up there.
It certainly is. And to our listener, next time you're settling into your seat and the plane pushes back, just remember, you aren't flying alone. There is a ghost pilot in the jump seat, checking the sensors, reading the data. Let's just hope the Wi-Fi stays on. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We will catch you on the next one.